Hello and welcome back to the next video in the FX Evolution trading course. Today we'll be discussing the topic of equity and margin in Forex. Firstly, I'd like to revisit the previous video's example of leverage at 100 to 1. In that video we discussed that if we were to buy one lot of Great British Pound, we would need 146,327 US dollars. To gain this market exposure, we could use leverage at 100 to 1 to borrow 99% of the money from the broker and provide 1% of the money, or $1,463, to open this position. This $1,463 represents the margin held for the position. So let's take a bit of a look at that in a $5,000 trading account, which is typical for a lot of people to open initially. If we were to buy one lot of Great British Pound, the margin held would be $1,463. The remaining amount in our account would become what's called free margin. A free margin can be calculated by taking the equity in the account and minusing the margin held, giving us a total free margin, in this case, of $3,537. So what would happen if the position went against us while we were trading? Let's say $200 in this case. The margin held will still remain the same, and it's important to note that the margin held will not change because we still have the same sized contract open, one lot of Great British Pound US dollar. The free margin, however, will change. So if we get our initial free margin and minus the $200 that we're currently down, that will give us a total free margin of $3,337. This would mean that if we would close the position currently, we could calculate our equity as free margin plus margin held, which would mean that if we close the position currently, it would be $4,800. Now, what happens if the position goes $500 against us? Again, the margin held does not change. The free margin will now become $3,037, and the equity, if we were to close the position at this time, would become $4,500. Now let's take a look at if the position goes very badly and goes against us. Obviously not an ideal situation. If the position went $3,537 against us, so all of our free margin, the margin held would still remain the same. Our free margin would go to zero, however, and it would mean that if we were to close the position currently, our equity would only be $1,463. In brokers, this will mean that you have no more free margin and the position will be stopped out instantaneously. This is called a margin call, and this is how a margin call works. Now let's take a quick look at if the trade goes in our favor, let's say $500. Our margin held will remain the same. However, our free margin this time can be calculated by taking the initial amount and then plussing $500, which would mean that we have $4,037 of free margin currently. It would also mean that if we close the position at this time, we would get $5,500, so a profit of $500 US dollars. So if we chose to take the profit, we'd have $5,500 in our bank account. This concludes the video for today, and we'll see you in the next video.